Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Christine Muldoon, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Strategy here at WebMD Health Services, and I am joined by Erin Seaverson, Senior Director of the Center for Research. And we're so excited to share with you why in 2026, workplace well-being isn't just a nice to have, it's the smartest investment your organization can make. Oh, hi, Sonia. She just said good afternoon. Hello, Jamila. So across industries, companies are realizing that investing in employee well-being isn't just about perks or programs, it's about real business impact. And healthier, more supported employees are more productive, they're more engaged, and they're more likely to stay with your organization. And today we're going to share 4 key trends that prove why. So I want you to sort of think of this webinar as your roadmap or business case to understanding not just why investing in well-being matters, but exactly how you can make it a strategic advantage in 2026 with takeaways that you can implement hopefully today. And so we are going to also make this somewhat of an interactive webinar. So for those of you that had said hello, yes, you've discovered the attendee chat. So go ahead and use that chat feature. We'll pose some questions to the audience and you can type in your thoughts or responses. Of course, we'll also have the Q&A box. So you have any questions specific to what we're talking about, go ahead and use the Q&A box and we will address those at the end of our presentation.
All right, well, very excited to have you all on the line. And I know this is something that Christine and I look forward to doing every single year. So thank you to our repeat attendees, to all of you newbies out there. Before we get started, we thought we would pose a question to you all, kind of lay some groundwork for today. This is actually a question that was posed to Christine and I from John Harrison. John is our president and general manager here at WebMD Health Services, and he always likes to keep us on our toes, keep us thinking. So here's the question. So keep in mind, this is your time to use the chat feature. I see many of you are finding it now. So the question, here we go. What do you think is the most expensive well-being strategy out there? So again, use the chat. We would love to hear from you. What do you think is the most expensive well-being strategy out there?
Well, we just got a lot of people sharing where they're from.
Yeah.
So, yay!
Florida.
And they're from everywhere. I'm going to give my thought on this, which is I originally thought this was a trick question. But Erin, yay, we're seeing so many people saying doing nothing, not having a strategy, not having a strategy, not having one. So how come everyone's getting this right? And I think I totally got it wrong when John had asked that question. Oh, wait, it's going so fast. Someone said something about benefits, not doing nothing to keep retention low, sick time. So what is the answer, Erin? Truthfully.
The answer, truthfully, simply not having one, right? So no tricking you all. Thank you for thank you for indulging us. But this is exactly what we are going to be talking about today. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to just jump right in, and I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with sharing a little bit of a personal story. And so at the end of last year, I would say that my life completely changed. It wasn't what I would expect it to be. So a week before Christmas, I had a seizure and a whole host of other stuff that I won't bore you with. But at the end of the day, I found out that I had a brain tumor. And so the day after Christmas, I had brain surgery. And oh yeah, I cannot forget that I also was in menopause. And I'm sure many of you are like, okay, Christine, TMI, we barely even know you. But I promise there is a point to this story. You see, what surprised me the most wasn't the physical recovery that I had to go through. Now, of course, that was hard. And for someone that has been working in well-being for over 20 years, the fact that I can barely walk to the end of the driveway and back was very difficult. But really what surprised me the most was how invisible my experience was at work. On the outside, I mean, I looked fine-ish. Yes, I had a racing stripe of missing hair, and I definitely gained like 10 plus pounds. So thank God for Zoom meetings. But on the inside, I truly was managing pain, exhaustion, depression, anxiety, and definitely had some challenging memory issues. And I think that these are the things that most workplaces today aren't equipped to recognize, let alone support. And that's when it really hit me. Workplace well-being can't be surface level perks, you know, things like a gym stipend or a meditation app or healthy snacks, right? Because at that moment, I realized when life really happens, people do need something deeper. And so that's why Erin and I are here today. We believe that there are 4 powerful trends focused on well-being that will give you all an opportunity to continue to evolve well-being within your organizations, maybe to see stronger results, and to inspire you to support your people and really show how your organization thinks about that link between employee well-being, business performance, and your employees as people. And so we're going to share with you these 4 trends. Of course, you don't see on the list AI. And while AI is certainly part of this evolution, it is helping connect employees maybe to the right care and personalized recommendations. Those are certainly exciting developments. But the trends we're talking about today are about the opportunities you have to continue to evolve your strategies, to really have a well-supported workforce that is certainly healthier, happier, more productive, and resilient, because that does matter. It really does. So I'm going to kick off trend number 1. And this is something that we are calling advancing holistic well-being. So I'll start off by saying, yes, there are multiple dimensions of well-being. We all know that. It isn't new. So you have physical, mental, social, financial, and work. And each one of these dimensions are interconnected, meaning that when one happens, there is a ripple effect on the others. But what's new is this holistic approach. This idea moves beyond treating symptoms or treating health in isolation with basically general broad-based solutions. But it's more about offering comprehensive, personalized care that addresses each person's unique experience across the spectrum of life and health. And we believe when we look at advancing holistic well-being in 2026, there are 3 areas where we will see the biggest change. The first is women's health, with an emphasis on midlife and specifically menopause. The second is mental health, and the third is financial well-being. And for each of these, a holistic approach means offering not just broad-based solutions, but offering multiple pathways and multiple levels of support that empowers your people to take meaningful steps towards their personal health goals. So we're going to talk about each one of these. I'm going to obviously start with menopause as the example of holistic well-being. So I want you all to kind of put yourselves in the shoes of a woman in the workplace. And imagine this: you're in a big meeting and you are leading the conversation, and suddenly your mind goes blank. Like, you literally can't remember what you were going to say. You can't remember the words at all. And yes, that's probably enough to trigger a hot flash, but that's for a different day. That night, you can't sleep. The next day, you push through fatigue. You try to stay focused, but you feel like you're just moving through fog. For millions of women, this is not one bad day at work. This is menopause. And what we'll say is that in most workplaces, menopause is invisible. It's not part of well-being. There's no support, there's no discussion, no ERGs, and maybe there's even no benefits. Yet it's a stage of life with symptoms that affect things like focus, energy, engagement, and health. So this is not the time for women in the workplace to either step back from an opportunity, and actually some might be leaving the workplace altogether. And I want to be clear, it's not because they can't do the job, it's because that they don't feel supported. WebMD Health Services just completed a survey where we surveyed women in the workplace going through menopause, and 50% of the women surveyed said that they concealed symptoms out of fear of judgment or the impact on their career. So what is the impact of offering menopause-related benefits, education, and support? Well, according to our study, 90% of women said that if they had menopause support, it would improve their well-being, engagement, and overall performance. And this is an example of when we provide holistic well-being as part of, in this case, women's health, we're giving an opportunity for women to thrive even during midlife in the workplace.
And these stats, Christine, are really striking to me. I've read through the study. I can't wait for more data to come from that. But I think what you've shared really is a need that is clearly not sufficiently filled for women in the workplace. I'm really curious what's happening with the organizations that are represented here today. So for you all who are actively contributing to the chat, we'd love for you to jump in there or use your thumbs up, thumbs down for this next question. It's very simple. Simple question. Does your organization support menopause as part of women's health, as part of your current well-being strategies? Are you at all focused on supporting women who are leading up to, who are working through, who are post-menopause? I saw some comments come through that, yes, they feel supported, they feel heard. No, no.
But here we go.
Got a few. Oh no, thumbs down.
And sometimes, I mean, some organizations may be offering something, but it's not enough, or they don't share what they're offering. And so people don't know what's available. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
I was just gonna say it's a mix. Some are offering programs. I feel like we've seen quite a few, though, that say they don't, and yet they work in healthcare. I saw that one come through. So,
yeah.
Erin, I know that we have done quite a bit, not only for our clients who use our well-being solutions and services. We have partnered with Medovia so that our health coaches are trained in menopause, and obviously there are different stages of menopause. We also offer group coaching as part of our well-being program. As an employer, we are focusing to become a menopause-friendly workplace, and we have also offered educational webinar series to our employees as well. So we're all trying to do something, but I just don't think we're quite there. But 26 is going to be that place that we will get to. And there's one other thing, because I've seen some questions scroll through as well. If you want to learn more about how to support menopause and women's needs, we will be unveiling our research that we just completed in a webinar on December 4th. So make sure you be on the lookout for that webinar. We're going to go into a lot of details on those results. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit more of a sneak peek about what our research study found, which is 2 in 3 women believe their employers have a responsibility to offer menopause support. Yet most said that their employer is not doing enough. And so not surprising there. So what does a menopause-friendly workplace look like? Well, based on our research, here is what some women identified as being helpful. offering flexibility in terms of when, where, how we work, access to menopause trained providers. It seems like an easy thing, but a lot of providers are not trained in menopause. Benefits that include not only HRT, hormone replacement therapy, but alternatives as well, because not every woman can or maybe wants to take HRT. Menopause health coaching, because sometimes it's not just a whole bunch of clinical things they need support on, but they want to be able to track their symptoms or connect with relevant resources for things like mood, anxiety, depression, etc. And also looking for education for managers on menopause to support awareness and support within the workplace. So these are just some simple, I would say, but powerful steps that organizations can create to raise menopause awareness and support. And here's the thing, menopause is really just one example of how deeply life and work are connected. And so Erin's going to share some more.
Yeah, great. All right, so this is really coming at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I realize. We're going to take some time and talk about mental health as a key element of advancing holistic well-being. And clearly this isn't a new trend, right? Many of you were on the line with us the last few years, and we've talked about mental health as part of our annual trends. But here's what we know from research. We know that employees are asking their organizations for more support around their mental health. We know that organizations are incorporating more mental health support within their well-being strategies. In fact, data from Business Group on Health show that almost half of employers believe that mental health is the most important dimension as part of their well-being strategy. So the workplace health, mental health movement, I'll say, really has progressed over time from a point of being reactive, flashback to 2020, and we're all in the thick of the pandemic, and it was all about damage control, right? Very quickly, aggressively raising awareness to what resources are available right now to make sure that individuals knew where and how to access them. This has evolved with an emphasis on deepening education, addressing stigma, and is now growing into one that's based more in integrated support. We see leaders are prioritizing mental health because they see it as a driver of well-being. It's an aspect of their culture, of stability, of business performance. So then the question is, okay, we recognize that mental health continues to be important, but how is this showing up? What is it going to look like going into 2026? And we see it showing up in a few different ways. First, addressing mental health across the continuum of need, recognizing that not everyone needs therapy and not everyone needs medication to treat a clinical condition, but it is about meeting people where they are with the support that they need, again, across the continuum of care. It's about improving access to mental health support, whether that be through digital solutions or other mental health partners, and also leveraging technology. We're hearing a lot about AI being used to identify those needs efficiently, to deliver services at scale. And much like what Christine had talked about with with women's health and menopause care becoming more personalized, more holistic, mental health strategies have really broadened to thread with other well-being needs into a more cohesive experience. So for example, individuals taking GLP-1 drugs for weight loss may also need support for their mental aspect of the journey. And we know that weight loss is not just a physical change, right? I would also say, we have traditionally been very good about identifying solutions to meet individual needs, but what's happening at an organization level? And I think this is where more and more companies are going to be putting some attention, especially as we consider how to address root causes of concerns like burnout. What's happening around workload, schedules, what sort of support is being provided to leaders, to managers. And then also as it relates to supporting mental health, strengthening the human web of support. And I see that showing up with designated mental health champions, again, focusing on people managers, not just with training, but also building in points of accountability as they are working to support their employees. Now, rounding out trend number one comes our third point that Christine mentioned at the outset, financial well-being. We all hear the headlines, right? I mean, it's in the news every single day about the current economic climate. Some of it's really great news, and some of it just continues to pose those challenges as we consider day-to-day life, inflation, cost of goods, healthcare, and so on. And there's no question that finances are a significant source of stress for a lot of people right now. In fact, some research that we've done at the Center for Research earlier this year, our Workplace and Employee Survey, which is an annual research initiative that we have, where we explored perceptions of employee perceptions of their well-being, and of the 5 well-being dimensions that we asked about, so physical, mental health, financial, work, and social, financial was ranked the lowest. Further, we know that financial stress doesn't exist in a silo. It's not out there just on its own. Individuals who are struggling to manage their bills or struggling to save, it can ripple across all different aspects of life, impacting mental health, productivity at work. Data from Business Group on Health, however, suggests that employers see this, that they understand it, that they're getting it. 90%, over 90% of employers addressed financial health as part of their well-being strategy this year. As we look into next year in 2026, 100% of companies said that financial well-being was going to be part of their broader well-being strategy. In 2026, we believe that financial well-being is going to move beyond education, beyond literacy, to take a more comprehensive approach that will work to understand the needs that exist in the population, and will be used to build out systems to enable employees with the tools and with the resources to provide more tailored and personal support.
So the net here is with financial well-being, we can't necessarily keep approaching it the same way we always have. And as Erin said, in 26, we do expect organizations to really move beyond, I would say, financial literacy and focus more on financial empowerment. And what that means is that we want to give people the tools, the guidance, and the confidence to take control of their financial lives at every stage. And so what's important to level up financial well-being in 2026? Well, it's going to be important to understand what the needs of your people are, because as we've been saying with this one big ginormous trend, not everyone's needs are the same. And therefore, if you only do check the box with women's health, check the box with mental health, and in this case, check the box with financial wellness, you are maybe not meeting your employees where their personal financial wellness goals are. So it's important to assess what their needs are and make sure that you are offering the right level of solution to support them. Personalized support is part of this as well. So maybe it's one-on-one coaching. Maybe it's making sure that you are supporting all income levels and life stages and providing really that financial well-being guidance that feels relevant and actionable to your employees. We also want to look at building financial resiliency. So there's things like, some employees are really focusing on emergency savings programs because they want help to kind of handle the unexpected. And others are looking at their longer term financial goals. And there's a point where you don't want one to impact the other. And I would say also a practical thing that you could do is support practical learning. So financial literacy matters, but it has to be practical and relevant to where people are in their financial well-being goals. So, it should be able to demonstrate how concepts like market volatility, inflation, or debt impact day-to-day lives as well as their families, maybe provide some real world lessons. so that it helps employees understand the impact that these different things have. And I think probably one of the most important things is milestone driven guidance. Again, depending on your population, some people need to support major life events, such as buying a home, caregiving, planning for retirement. And it's important to understand where your employees are and make sure that you're helping them navigate these milestones for that longer term financial well-being. Erin, what do you think here? How do we kind of bundle this?
Yeah, well, the milestone driven guidance very much so, strikes me as I think back, think along my life course here. But as I reflect on the entirety of the first trend, which we know is packed with 3 different primary areas, what really strikes me is the thread that seems to be connecting the 3 is empowerment, right? The goal of empowerment, empowering employees to make the right decisions, to influence change. I'm curious your thoughts there.
I completely agree. I was thinking about how you started talking about mental health, and I was talking about women's health. And this whole thing is that there's this stigma that impacts how we roll these topics out in organizations. You need leadership support. And it's also about really thinking about where people are in their health goals and their health journeys, and recognizing that you can't have this standard solution that's going to address everyone where they are. You really need to go holistic and deeper. And if I go all the way back to the story I shared at the beginning of this webinar, for me personally, it was physical, it was mental, it was, women's health. All of these things were impacting me. And I really personally needed something deeper to support my overall journey and health goals as well.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I think we are ready for trend number 2. I promise the rest of these won't be as complex, but trend number 2 is organizational care as a competitive advantage. And so we're talking about real life. So we're going to give you some real life examples. So does this happen at your organization? Number 1, an employee shares an idea and leadership not only listens, but they act on it. Number 2, an employee feels safe to speak up even when they disagree, because psychological safety is part of your culture. Number 3, a manager checks in with employee, not just to see how they're doing with their deadlines, but to see how they are really doing, how they're really doing. And number 4, an employee feels like they belong, not just as an employee, but as part of your organization's future. Each one of these are examples of what organizational care looks like. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was an interesting stat that I wanted to share with all of you. The average person spends 90,000 hours at work in their lifetime. 90,000 hours. That's a lot of time to feel unseen. Yet most employees don't feel like their employer truly cares and is genuinely committed to their well-being. Last week, I jumped into an Uber. I was speaking at the health conference, and I was talking to the Uber driver, and I was talking about this particular topic. And he was like, wait a minute. Do you mean that employers are supposed to care about their employees and their well-being? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this isn't a concept right now. But there is hope. The Center for Research did great study on org care, which I know Erin's going to share more about. But employees who feel cared for by their employer are 56% more engaged, 34% more likely to stay with their organization, and 34% less stressed. And what I would say here is that all of this really does come down to this deeper human need, which is for trust, for connection, and for knowing that they matter. And so looking ahead, the foundation of care is really going to be, I think, what separates organizations that merely survive change to those that really grow with it. One last thing I'll say here is our keynote speaker this past year for Empower Our Client event said this, and I think it just resonated so perfectly with this topic. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I think this is just going to be a huge focus for organizations in 26. What do you think, Erin?
I think so, of course. I'm a little biased on that one, but also thanks to Sint, who is so wise and such incredible words of wisdom, truly, with that quote that really does fit this topic so well. So before we get into the thick of this, one more question for you all. When you think of organizational care, I'm curious how it shows up for you and your organization. So the question is, and again, please, take this moment to reflect, take this moment to throw a response into the chat, but how does your organization show care to your employees? Whatever that means to you, how does your organization show care to your employees?
And again,
Yeah, please. I've asked this question in several different forums, as you all might imagine, and the responses are always really interesting to me because you do see it show up in a lot of different ways. I see, I've heard integration, I've heard benefits, I've heard support. Yes, Barbara, thank you for that. Policies, benefits, resources. WebMD.
Offering WebMD. Flexible work schedules.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Employee appreciation, holiday parties, it runs the gamut. So keep it coming. I think it's important for us to, one, recognize that it does show up in a lot of different ways, and that's really important. Organizational care is a concept that we've been exploring the last few years at the Center for Research, and is one that we believe is at the heart of employee experience and is really important. It's really essential to how we support employee well-being. I think it's also really important that we define what this is. What do we mean by organizational care? And for the purposes of our work, the way that we've studied it, it really is employee perception of care, which we've defined as the extent to which employees perceive that their organization is committed to supporting their well-being. Again, it's the extent to which employees perceive that their organization is committed to supporting their well-being. And some of you, this may sound like a new concept, right? Does it feel new, maybe? It does align very closely, however, to the concept of culture of well-being, which is something that we have talked about in the industry for a long time. It is a very well-established best practice that helps to ensure the sustainability of all of the efforts that we have been putting into play. So when we talk about building a culture of well-being, what we're really saying is that we want people to feel that their organization, that we genuinely care about their well-being. So then comes the question, all right, so now that we know what it is, what dictates how employees feel, and what can we do to actually influence organizational care? So let's go there next. Our research has found 6 key elements that really show up, that really influence how an employee feels care. 1, employees feel cared for when they're kept informed about policies, about plans, when they're in the loop, when they're communicated to. They feel cared for when leadership genuinely values their input and, importantly, takes meaningful action on that feedback. They feel cared for when their manager provides consistent support, when they can show up at work and have a dissenting opinion, and it is okay, it's accepted. So when there's psychological safety, that's just one way that that shows up. And also when they feel part of the work community, when they have that sense of belonging, they are a participant in the future of the organization. And as Christine mentioned, when we were first queuing up this topic, if we were to distill it down into the most simple of terms, these elements reflect the deeper needs for trust and for connection to teams, to managers, to leaders, and to the broader organization. Now I know it's kind of a lot, right? It's a pretty heady 6 elements, so we're going to break it down a little bit. First, let me see if this clicks through here. All right, it's working. That's what I was hoping for. On the left, the items that I just highlighted in blue. I think about these as sort of the quicker wins, right? They tend to be more tactical in nature. They often are more easily implemented at an individual team level, at a local level. It is about communication, it is about listening, it is about taking action. And all of this together really helps to build momentum for change. And then on the right, in the magenta, these last 3 elements, these are more longer term priorities. These are going to take some time, they're going to take some effort, also require cross-functional alignment and coordination, much more of a sustained effort across the entire organization. So we think about these as being more foundational in nature. They're going to take time, but they're very important for lasting change. So as we look into 2026, we put on our future lens. We believe that organizations are going to be working with greater intention to build and to foster organizational care. And it is totally worth it to do this. Employees who feel cared for rate their experiences around these 6 areas 91% higher than those who don't feel cared for. And circling back to some of the stats that Christine mentioned earlier, those who feel cared for report lower stress, lower burnout, less rates of burnout. They have higher job performance. They're more engaged with their work. They report more favorable well-being, and they're more likely to stay with their organizations. These results really do speak to just how far that sense of care can reach for the individual, but also for the organization.
All right, so Erin was just talking about the elements that influence organizational care, and you heard her say employee voice and taking action on that is super important. I also saw in the chat, people saying, hey, we show org care through our benefits, but 2 people chimed in about surveys and listening, which I'm so happy for, because you literally just teed up the 3rd trend, which is listening with intent. And so I'm probably dating myself here, but I've already done that since the beginning of this webinar, so it shouldn't be a shock. But think about how engagement surveys used to work in an organization years ago, right? They were once a year, and you filled in the little bubbles with your pen, and then you sent your results to leadership, and then you just hoped something happened, and you just waited. And the reality is this doesn't cut it anymore, because employees not only expect their voices to matter, but they also expect to see change almost in real time. So I think there are organizations, and probably some of you who've chimed in here already, that really do get this. Maybe you're using pulse surveys, which means that you're doing short little surveys throughout the year to check in on employers, manager conversations, skip level meetings, even maybe workplace sentiment analysis if you're really sophisticated. But regardless of the approach, the real difference is that you're not just collecting feedback, but you are actually acting on it. And when employees see their input leads to real change, and that could be in culture, it could be in benefits, it could be in leadership strategies, they trust your organization more. And when you, as this trend is saying, listen with intent, that feedback turns into greater connection with the organization. And then that connection is what ultimately drives performance and overall engagement. And so in the end, listening isn't just about collecting data, it's connection, and that's what drives those real results. Erin, what does listening look like in action?
Yeah, I think, again, this is another great example of how it can show up in a few different ways. I think as we again, look into where we go for 2026, we'll see more of a balanced approach to data capture, which is a very important aspect of this trend number 3 here. So I would anticipate a balance of broad-based data capture with surveys, with even tapping into the humans that exist within your organization, right? Your business resource groups, for example, and balancing that with more focused, specific mechanisms of one-on-one meetings, skip level meetings. So it is about keeping a pulse on what you're hearing, whether that be through surveys or whether that be through actual conversations. We'll see breaking down silos so that we're paying attention to employee experience and well-being and how those exist together. And we'll use those insights to inform where we go with our well-being strategy, with our retention strategy, with our performance strategies. In action, I think it's really important to recognize that the feedback loop is perhaps the most important aspect of this. We want to capture the information, recognize that we have received it, we've heard it. So that may come in the form of appreciation, that may come in the form of trainings, that may come in the form of recognition, simply saying, this is what you've told us. We're taking this, we're processing, and we know that not all change can happen, right? I mean, we do work under budgetary constraints. A lot of the changes that are hoped for do require a financial investment, and not all of that is feasible. But as we collect and as we learn, it's important to share that back to employees so they understand that we are paying attention. The bottom line, as I see it, when feedback is truly valued, it does signal to employees that their voices matter, that they matter. And so we can't stop at just collecting the feedback. We really need to work to close the loop. And closing the loop can be small incremental steps. And when we have the opportunity to make big change, then it includes the big change. But it is about working to close that loop.
And Erin, before I jump to the next trend, because I see some comments here about sometimes you can't implement the requested change. And I thanks, because others are supporting that. But it's the idea that, make sure leadership can actually position the why. I mean, you're listening with intent. The intent may not always be to immediately take action on that thing, but also educate employees. We heard you, we're looking at different options, because you're right. Like you can't do everything that your employees are asking for. It's just not feasible, but demonstrating some listening with intent, strategies, things that you're considering, I think it's about being, as someone said, more transparent.
Yes.
Okay, so we are ready for the last piece here. So I'm going to kind of take one little step back. We talked about trend number 1, which is integrating holistic well-being. We talked about women's health, mental, and financial well-being as the 3 that will be most focused on here. When you show your employees you care, when you listen with intent, so those were the first 3 trends, then we believe you are ready for the ultimate shift that's going to happen in 2026, which is redefining the ROI of well-being. And so I think it's really fun right here, right now, if we bust this myth right now on this webinar that well-being is not soft, thumbs up. It's not a perk, thumbs up. But it is a strategy. And I'll take a little step back here with this bust a myth concept, which I think could be a song or something. Many organizations, many of you on this webinar today, you're feeling the pressures. We have rising healthcare costs. We have increasing employee healthcare needs. Maybe you're like drilling down and looking at, okay, what conditions are driving our costs? You're certainly looking at medication costs, obesity, and you're just sitting here going, something has got to give. But now is not the time to pull back on your well-being investment. This is not the thing to give. because workplace well-being strategies that are aimed at helping employees get well, stay well, and thrive are going to be more important than ever as we go into the new year. And the companies that get this right, they're not just funding programs, they are really leveraging well-being as an investment in building their cultures and investing in their people. And then the payoff is real. Lower turnover, less burnout, stronger performance, healthier, more engaged employees. I want to share this statistic. It came from a Mercer report that was released just recently, which said, get ready, everybody, employees say they'd give up a 10% pay increase for better well-being benefits. 10% pay increase. That tells you just how important this matters. Think about it. What's the ROI of an employee who stays instead of leaves, who feels energized versus burnt out, who brings creativity, empathy, and loyalty to your company, who feels cared for, and who is healthy? Well-being is not a program that gets cut when year one metrics don't meet expectations, because maybe those expectations were slightly off. Organizations that invest in well-being as a business imperative, I'm talking about a true investment in culture and people, recognize, one, it takes work, they're committed, they have leadership support, they communicate about their program often, and they leverage best practices, and they recognize it takes time. And not only do they focus on employee well-being, but their strategy design approach also incorporates organizational well-being as well. So I think the question is not, can we afford to invest in well-being? Rather, the question is, can we afford not to? And when you make a long-term commitment, we actually have seen clients, sure, they have significant improvements in their health, they have ROI, and I'm going to let Erin, I'm not going to spoil your part of the story here.
Thank you, Christine. As an industry, shameless plug, I guess. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary with WebMD. So this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. And as an industry, we have talked about what it takes to yield a positive ROI. It's an investment in time, in dollars, in resources, right? We all know that. So we wanted to share an example, a story, if you will, of an organization that we've worked with for many years, 15 years now, really as an example of one who's deeply invested in well-being. So from the very start, they've been focused on building out a strategy that would promote a strong workplace culture that supported employees' long-term health and well-being. Improving health, managing costs, impacting healthcare cost trend were key drivers of their strategy very early on. And they did all of the right things. It took time, mind you, but they were very focused on implementing best practices. They took a holistic approach to address the needs of the population across the continuum of health. So strategies to support the healthy and maintaining those healthy lifestyle behaviors, strategies and programs and solutions to support those who had risk to be managed, and to make sure that those who had conditions and those who needed support had the support that they needed, right? Working locally to build grassroots support for the programs, for the initiatives, working to engage with leadership to build support long-term. And over time, they created an award-winning program that's been recognized in several different outlets. Clearly outstanding results that you can see here on the slide: an increasing proportion of the population at low risk, a decreasing proportion of the population at high risk. This has not been a check-the-box program for them. It's not a cost to be cut. It's one that they pay attention to, and they refine their strategy to ensure that it aligns to meet their goals. And I believe what I just shared here is really a stellar demonstration that when organizations who are focused on doing the hard work in a smart way, focusing on best practices and making that investment, can really move the needle on the health of their population and see that reflected in costs. So when we think about 2026, and we did define this as a trend, right? And again, I just said that we've been talking about ROI for a long time. What does it mean to put a new lens to ROI? And I would challenge you all really with the first question of what does ROI mean for your organization? And when we think about the broader value proposition, it could be defined a number of different ways. The reality is the payoff really can be all of these things, but it needs to be meaningful to you. It needs to be meaningful to your leadership, and it has to be something that you can measure. So if your definition for ROI is that you're moving the needle on healthcare cost, how have you designed your strategy today? What does that look like into the future? What are you doing to mitigate health risk? How are you impacting the health in a positive way? How are you guiding employees to appropriate care? If the definition is more aligned to, say, brand reputation or loyalty, is your strategy designed to get you there? We know, too, that no matter what you're marching towards, you want to consider how you're moving the needle for the individual and recognizing that it can't just exist there. It has to be a multi-level approach. So what are we doing to influence the organization? The key here is really defining what ROI means to you, what success looks like, and making sure that your strategy is aligned to those desired outcomes, and also considering how the well-being strategy aligns to what's happening within the broader organization with the mission, priorities, values, the broader business strategy. So I come from research, right? I love a good spreadsheet and I love numbers. I spend a lot of time with them, but I've found myself reflecting lately more and more that behind every number, behind every click, behind every coaching call, behind every healthcare claim, and every safety incident is a person. And it's really easy to get lost in those numbers, but let's not get lost on the point that our employees are humans first. The bottom line here is that, at least how I think about it for 2026, is that the real ROI of well-being isn't measured in spreadsheets. While that might be part of the story, it's measured in people. And so, in summary, to take all of these 4 trends, you've been at this for a while now, what we're ultimately saying, let's go a little bit lighter in tone here, is that employee well-being is going to be your game changer. So if we think back to the very first question that we posed to you, what is the most expensive well-being strategy? Christine, what's the answer?
Doing nothing.
Nothing. Not having one. Not having one. So as we get ready to close, one more question for you. We're not closing just yet, but our hope is that you have heard something today that sparked a little something for you, whether that be an idea, a conversation, maybe it's a new direction. But as you consider this and what you've heard, we would like to know, what is one word that describes your well-being strategy as you look into 2026? Again, feel free to use the chat. But
Can I share mine?
One word that describes your well-being strategy in 2026.
Erin, I'm going to share mine while we're waiting for this to pull up. But mine is human impact, because I think every trend that we talked about today is how to evolve your well-being program and strategies to really impact, support, meet people where they are, the impact that your well-being program will have on your people. People are saying growing, mentoring, return on value, choices, approachable.
Care, I saw care. That one resonates with me. Yeah.
Resilient.
Clearly, Christine and I have been working together for a long time, because people was on my list also.
We'll keep them coming. We'll check back to some of these. I think we're going to go ahead and go to kind of our final slide here. And Erin, just so you know, it does build. Erin's been helping me with my clicking here. But we do believe that if you leverage these trends and really go deeper with your well-being strategies, you will give your organization a strategic advantage. And so as we move into 2026, here's a challenge for all of you that are on the webinar today. We want you to go deeper on holistic well-being because we believe that's where real change is going to happen. So please recognize that women's health, including all stages like menopause, matter. Understand that mental health matters and there is no one-size-fits-all approach. So how can you make sure that you are bringing solutions and services that support each individual, whether it's education, all the way to that one-on-one support? Acknowledge that financial well-being matters. And again, that we need to meet people where they are and empower them in their own financial well-being journey. These are the dimensions that we believe will define the future of workplace well-being. And when we move beyond broad-based solutions, you will see an impact. Number 2, make organizational care your competitive advantage. Employees want to know, think about my Uber driver, wait, our employers are supposed to care about our well-being? Yes. Number 3, keep listening. Listen to your employees continuously and act with intent and empathy. And number 4, treat well-being not as a cost center, but as a strategic investment in your people and your organization's future. Because here's the truth. As we said before, well-being is no longer a perk, it's a promise. And the question is, will all of you and your organizations keep that promise? So I want to thank you all for joining today. I hope that you've all enjoyed this conversation and are able to walk away with some good nuggets on 4 trends that I think will really make you all competitive and have a strategic advantage with your employees and in the marketplace overall. We're going to open it up for Q&A. I know we have 2-ish minutes and I've seen quite a few questions come through. So Erin, I am going to start with one that I think will be perfect for you. Thanks, great info. But how do you recommend we navigate these conversations when we're being asked to cut costs, which is, yeah, it's a big problem right now.
Question of the year right there, I would say, right? I don't know that there is any simple answer, and it's certainly not a single answer. So, let's just recognize that many of y'all are in the same boat. It's been a challenging year with difficult conversations and really hard decisions that have to be made. I would start with data. Again, coming from research, I think it's really important as you consider what needs exist within the population, maybe bumping that up against an inventory of all of the tools and resources, the solutions that you have in place. Does it align? And how can you best optimize those resources? How can you make them work harder for you in a way? And then where you see things maybe not lining up, is there a way to consider reallocation of dollars so that your investment in well-being continues, but maybe it's aligned to meet the needs of your people? And then I would also say we're finding it's interesting. We've been, as an industry, focused on well-being for a long time. But often when times get tough like this, there's a lot of re-education that needs to happen. Like, what is the value of well-being versus wellness, right? For many years, the industry was more focused on physical health. We know that it's gone far beyond that. And so helping to connect the dots between well-being and maybe other metrics that matter to leadership, employee engagement, for example.
Thank you, Erin. We are out of time, but I want to make sure I put a plug in for this because people are asking about the slides. You will receive a copy of the slides and the recording of the webinar post this webinar. So you don't worry, don't frantically write. You're going to have all this at your hot little fingertips shortly. I want to thank everyone for your kind messages. We love that you love this every year. But for those of you that are new, thank you for coming back and listening to us. This is our favorite time of the year as well. I want to thank everyone for joining. If we did not get to your question, we will follow up. And thank you so much for joining today. Thank you, Erin, for being my partner in crime with the trends every
It's a
year.
great time, Christine.
And we hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, week, happy Halloween, and go well-being investments. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Well done.